Hello students, let us discuss the topic globalization, state and market. In this lecture, we will try to understand the relationship between state and the market, not only at the national level but also at the global level, and how globalization is reshaping the interaction between the market and the state. We know that today both the state and the market are not immune from international influences. The 1990s have seen a rapid transformation in the role of the state as well as the role of the market. Market is no longer the national market. Market has resumed global shifts in terms of interactions not only with national consumers but also with global consumers. Similarly, the state is also no longer a homogeneous state confined with its functions within its borders. In the expansion of a borderless world, we find the state has also assumed structural changes. Now we need to understand that how globalization has transformed the relationship through a review of the literature, through review of the views put forth by liberals, socialists, as well as the neoliberal thinkers. Globalization is always believed that it has undermined many of the conservative controls exercised by the state before the 1980s. Today, our starting point for this discussion is the experimentation that globalization has brought about, and we are trying to evaluate the changing nature of the relationship between the state and the market in this borderless globalized world. What we call to be local. Neither the local has been undermined nor the global has assumed absolute importance. And between the global and the local, where does the state stand? And this is our area of discussion for today. In the 21st century, globalization is a widely popular term that has been praised as well as critically analyzed from practitioners, scholars, civil society activists, as well as citizens. It is a term increasingly associated with economic, social, cultural, political, and technological changes that have reduced national boundaries and bolstered international movement of goods, services, and capital. It has been held to be responsible for what is popularly called McDonaldization of food and culture, homogenization of consumer taste, increased corporate power, rising poverty, rising inequality within states and between states. Globalization is thus a jumble of complex phenomenon that has been perceived and defined in more ways than one. Helena viewed globalization as a dual process comprising shrinkage of space and time due to technological advancements in transport, communication and information processing, and actions and decisions taken in one part of the world impacting other parts of the world due to high-speed connectivity and compression of the world into what is popularly called a global village. In another way, globalization can be explained as a process of adaptation to the irreversible processes challenging authority and welfare functions of the state in case of developing countries. The impact is felt far beyond. So globalization has had its impact not only on advanced industrialized countries but also in developing and underdeveloped countries of the world. The European Commission defined globalization in terms of processes that increase interdependency between market and production in different countries while responding to the trends in trade in goods and services and the flow of trade, science and technology. It also means creation of an internationalized world economy, and this is where our analysis begins. In this internationalized world economy, what is the role of the state and the market? Thomson, in this context, redefined globalization as a globalized world economy represented by a novel structure made up of disembedded economic relationships that are independent of national economies, where the principal actors are transnational corporations disembedded from national country. What is very important to understand here is that globalization, though initially refers to economic processes carried out with predominant neoliberal deregulation regime, and there is a concomitant understanding that the sovereignty of the state is undermined here. However, when we are trying to understand the relationship between state and market, it is important we try to understand the changing role of the state. Scholars are unanimous that the role of the state has definitely changed. But the question is, has it changed for the good, better, or worse? Now, if we try to understand the changing role of the state, there have been a concept saying that the state is of no use, but we need to understand that the state is still there. What has happened as a result of globalization is that there has been a reconceptualization of the role of the state. In other words, we mean that the state has not backtracked from its welfare role or providing social security. In many countries, social security measures have gone up much higher than in the pre-globalized days. Therefore, we need to understand that the traditional role of the state has been reconceptualized. There has been a question on the role of state sovereignty. With creation of a borderless world and what we say a global village, the question of sovereignty of the state seems to be undermined. However, we need to understand that state sovereignty still reigns supreme in terms of internal control and in terms of treaty making and alliances with other countries. What we can say that there is a new dynamism so far as state sovereignty is controlled, but we can never say that state sovereignty has completely withered away. Thirdly, there has been a redefinition of the state as a regulator. No doubt, market is very dynamic today. But then we need to know that the market cannot operate in chaos and disorder. So the state is there to regulate the market. State is performing another function in terms of being a facilitator. If you look into the special economic zones today created by the state for the benefit of multinational corporations. So in the case of special economic zones, we find the state playing the role of a facilitator. There is a rising dominance of international regulatory institutions, and the state has to abide by the norms created by these international regulatory institutions. The foremost among them is the World Trade Organizations. Countries which are members of WTO have to abide by the rules put in by this regulatory institution. And finally, problems are no longer confined to one or few states. So if you look into problems affecting a state, they have assumed global proportion. Therefore, unemployment, poverty, inequality are not national problems today. They are international or global problems. Let us try to understand the correlation between state and market in a globalized world. There are those who suggest that a market-driven economy is the best. What we say, that state is the best that governs the least. We believe the minimalist state. In fact, it is believed that the state, the market-driven economy will bring in prosperity for all. It is also argued by this market pro-advisors that the governments are incapable of intervening efficiently in the market, and therefore they should keep off the market as much as possible. Thus what they say is that the state has failed to control the market, and they are the advocates of the state failure theory. People who believe in this state failure theory suggest that such policy regimes would provide the foundation of a global economic system characterized by free trade, unrestricted capital mobility, open market and harmonized institutions. The ideologues believe that such globalization promises economic prosperity for countries that join the system, simultaneously economic deprivation for countries that do not join the system. The second group, however, does not deny the role of globalization and the market economy, but they do not support the above approach directly. They do not say that the state is going to meet a grim reality if they join the market-driven global world. They do not believe that the market left to itself can bring about human development, ensuring well-being of all. Why? Because they believe that the market exists for profit motive. This view rejects the simplistic view that government is part of the problem and should simply get out of the way. Liberalize trade and get the prices right and development would follow. In other words, this group believes that keep the market and the trading system free and development will automatically follow. However, this is too simplistic a solution and has been widely critiqued. On the contrary, they believe that state has a very important role to play in economic decisions for social, economic and all-round development. More so where there are large sections of communities and essentially in multicultural states, state still has to play a very important role in the resolution of economic conflicts and protection of the marginalized communities. So these communities left to themselves at the mercy of the market will just not be able to protect themselves. This group believes that economic structures are often used to enhance political power and cultural hegemony. So in the market, not all players are equal and have equal opportunity. This is the basic premise for our discussion that will follow shortly. The major powers use international forums selfishly, loading the dice against those who would truly benefit from a more integrated world. Thus, we find there is a selfish racket of globalized institutions catering to only their own selfish personal needs. Hence, this particular group suggests that the market, left to itself with efficiency and profit as its only goals, will not and cannot bring about social and economic development, and that the state will have to ensure that the market behaves as humanly as possible in order to bring about development and prosperity and the greatest good of the greatest number. Now, so far as the market is concerned, whether it is globalization or not globalization, profitability and efficiency are worthy goals because their realization is foundational to the development of the business as a whole. But we need to understand that business alone is not sufficient. The goal of human development must inform all the ends for which the company is organized and run. Only business motive, only profit motive will not bring about economic development or human development. So the government and the state must ensure that organizations and institutions in the market should adhere to the goal of human development besides profitability and efficiency. That means human development should be a goal along with profitability and efficiency, not at the cost of it. Another salient feature of the market is that it needs three things: 1, stability, 2, rules, and 3, regulations. And who is going to provide these three? Automatically the question is the state, because state alone can provide for economic stability, state alone can provide for rules and regulations. We also know that the market needs stability and it cannot function in a chaotic, disorderly world. Joseph Stiglitz argues that the market needs government. To quote him, government aids the development of market economics in that it either helps provide infrastructure of a regulatory structure that ensures the private provision of infrastructure at reasonable prices, often plays a vital role in developing and transmitting technology such as those of agriculture extension services, and can help promote equality and alleviate poverty. The state and the government thus need and is needed by the market. Therefore, they provide law and stability to the various market forces. It should therefore not come as a surprise that the development of the market mechanism during the Industrial Revolution in Europe followed closely the establishment of the law and order that could provide security to business and economic operations. We need to understand that the development of the market and the development of the state was coterminous because one cannot operate without the other. The market needs the government and the government needs the market for economic development. However, we need to understand that the juxtaposition of market and state is not as stark as it might appear. Globalization does not mean that the market will replace the state. The market mechanism and the government action, the two forms of economic decisions, are so thoroughly context dependent that it makes little sense to espouse a general pro-market or a pro-state view. Now let us come to this question. What do we need in an age of globalization? Pro-market only or pro-state? The debate is not about one form or the other. It is about how much autonomy, dependence and intervention that must be there between the market and the state so as to enable state and business to flourish. At the same time, human development should not suffer. It should, however, be emphasized in this context that government do not always act in the interest of people at large. This is an interesting observation. Indeed, governments are also sectarian in their actions. Governments also liaison with the market. Governments also liaison with corporate leaders, and therefore we find government at times may be pro-market also. The state does not always in modern times reflect pro-welfare state. Certain times the state misses the welfare orientation and caters to the market or the business aspirations of the people. On the other hand, we have to analyze and accept the fact that the market and the economic agents operating in the market do not act for common ends or for common goods. So two things are clear. One, the state does not always act in the common interest, and market also does not always act in the economic common interest. The market, therefore, left to it can be highly dangerous, cornering by a few operators of good in short supply, leading to a massive accentuation of shortage and suffering. So one thing is clear, market can never be left alone. On the basis of the relationship between state and market, we now come to the next issue, the relationship between the globalization and the state. Globalization is not just an economic process, it is also a political fact. It is influenced by complicating negotiations between transnational organizations, bilateral institutions, sovereign governments, private organizations, international institutions. It is also guided by neoliberal policies that aim for capitalist expansion via economic and strategic dominance. The limitations faced by states under pressure from multilateral agencies, global firms, global markets has also led to newer studies and newer findings about new intricacies between globalization and the state. It has been found that states succumb to transnational forces, leading to a return to colonization of a different type. And this form of colonization, we call it neo-colonization. The globalization effect has always been said to be a rollback of the state and the takeover of many economic functions of the market. It has been argued that the shrinkage of the state is directly proportional to the enlargement of the market. In other words, the economic expansion has led to a political shrinkage of the state. And the market is the best place, which is a place for equilibrium and division of labor, leading to an absolute gain for all. Thus, the withering away of the state is favorable for many economic decision making, because political interference should not stand in the way of market expansion and market efficiency. The state nonetheless has always at the center stage of societal governance. Even if you want to have the market dominate, the state cannot be left to itself. The onset of globalization, as has been widely agreed, has led to a rapid transformation of the state and state-led functions. In view of some, though it did not result in the autonomy of the state, but changed its complexion from a welfare state to a competition state. So, this is the major change in the nature of the state in the post-globalized era. The state though performs welfare functions, but it is not just a pro-welfare state, it is a competition state that favors deregulation and privatization irrespective of local, political and administrative cultures. The public sphere and the space for citizens' involvement seem to be shrinking, with the role of the state becoming highly corporate in nature. There is marketization of administration, dismantling of large administrative structures, introduction of flexible production system, lessening of control on public goods by the nation state, and preference of a governmental system led by the market phenomena. Globalization is pushing the state towards adhering to certain global standards, and as a result is undergoing a transformative phase. Therefore, what we find, the state has carried over to a new transformative role in terms of adhering to global international standards. State intervention in the globalization context takes various strategic forms. Three types of interventions have been found: functional, institutional and strategic. Functional interventions of the state seek to remedy market failures. Institutional interventions seek to govern the market by setting the rules of the game for the market players. And strategic interventions seek to guide the market. One thing is clear, that all the functional, institutional and strategic role of the state revolve around controlling and regulating the market. Nevertheless, the role of the state remains indisputable in the functioning of the market. This is because every market operates under some political authority which provides the rules for market operation. And here the state has considerable autonomy in deciding the rules of the game of the market. The state lays down regulations ranging from the constitutional and the legal framework for market operations, legislations on property rights, legislations on public and private investments, legislation on mixed economy, and so on and so forth. When markets fail, state steps in for providing public goods such as education, health, as well as the transportation network. So, in this globalized world, we find that the market has taken over a greater role, but that does not mean the state role has been undermined. We find that there has been a reconceptualization of the role of the state and the market in this age of globalization. Both do not operate independently. Both are dependent on each other and are shaped by the rules that the state prepare and impose upon the market. Economic reforms are initiated by the state to make more room for market but strengthen its authority in return. An interesting case is the 1990s reforms, liberal reforms introduced in India. It gave room for privatization and liberalization, but that does not mean that the state lost its control to regulate the market. Markets are influenced by internal circumstances as well as the nature of the state. Therefore, the role of the market is different in authoritarian states and in democratic states in this age of globalization. China and India operate their market in very different ways, even though globalization has influenced both these countries. A strong state that enhances the performance of the market players, balancing the interest of the market as well as other public institutions, is definitely imperative. Let us now try to understand, has there been a change in the way the market operates in the globalization era? Globalization enlarges both the space and the scope of the market while shrinking the role of the state. It integrates markets worldwide and shapes the behavior of economic agents, leading to transformation of international markets. It instills a sense of law of the motion of the global market. So what has the globalization done? It has created a system of integration of local markets into the global economy, thus creating a global market of consumer goods and services. The market is organized on the principles of demand and supply, competition and self-regulation. This holds true not only for internal markets but also for globalized markets. The efficiency of the market system tests the survival potential of firms as well as potential for innovation in production and distribution. Thus, in a particular country, internal or national private firms not only face competition from their internal private national competitors but also from global competitors. So the competition is much more expansive in the sense that you have to struggle and compete for very many large liberal market forces. It has been argued that efficiency contributes in the long run to absolute welfare of society since everyone gains for it. This competition within the market and in the transnational market creates space for everyone. However, so far as the market is concerned, globalization and global transnational forces favor a limited role of the market. That it should do less, reduce or relinquish its overburdening responsibilities, privatize public services and its delivery, and what is popularly called outsource many of the state-run services. These beliefs in government by the market rest upon the premise that the market system is a better way of satisfying human wants and aspirations. In other words, in a post-globalized world, it is believed that human aspirations can be better served by the market than by the limited role of the state. It has also been observed this removal of national barriers so far as the market is concerned, deregulation of the economy, export-driven economic growth and reorganization of local and national economies have aided the growth of national as well as international capital. It is fueled by the wholesale liberalization and deregulation, not to forget the fact that there is a widespread privatization in commerce and production. Thus, we can see that there has been a truly global market which has emerged in conjunction with the era of globalization. The existence of these global economies or global markets have erased domestic boundaries and integrated the national financial markets. Now, we need to understand that this historic development was possible only with the collapse of the socialist governments of Central and Eastern Europe that terminated command economies. One of the ways in which global capital spread was through the expansion of capitalist economies. The success of capital led to the mobility of capital in terms of scope, speed and volume on the one hand, and increased in social, economic and political power of the capital on the other. Globalization required opening of the economies. It demanded countries to embrace economic liberalism. Now, states had no other option but to embrace economic liberalization. Thus, so far as the market is concerned, globalization has resulted in, number one, greater freedom of choice for individuals to buy, sell, invest, obtain inputs from the market economies. Second, it has led to greater opportunities to diversify risk and invest resources where returns are the highest. Third, higher income to those employed in jobs producing goods and services for the international market. And fourthly, it has led to inward transfer of technology and know-how. Thus, we see globalization is a multifaceted phenomena emerging primarily from economic internationalization and broadening of free market regulations. What can be deduced from this discussion? Number one, there has been a new dynamism in the relationship between the state and market in the era of globalization. Secondly, the state has not withered completely and the market has not taken over completely. So there is coexistence of the state and the market. Thirdly, the state has also not lost its authority as argued. The state has considerable authority not only over the people but also resources and private entrepreneurs. However, what has happened is that there has been a reconceptualization of the role of the state in the neoliberal market economy, which has facilitated better integration of the global economy. Thank you.